Thank you everyone for joining us. We are talking today about building business-grade enterprise media ecosystems. So we're seeing a lot of corporate and enterprise customers coming to all of us and wanting to expand their media ecosystem, get out of just doing corporate AV, grow that. How do we message harder? How do we communicate out with the world, with our customers, with our employees in a much more efficient, much better standard? And so we're kind of here to talk about that. I'll introduce our guest today. We have Matt Morgan. He's a market development manager for Ross Video and Broadcast AV.
That's it. It's a mouthful to say.
It's a bit. And we have Mike Sullivan Trainer, who is a senior industry analyst with Avixa. Thank you guys for joining us. So let's start with what's actually changing in organizations. What are you seeing clients are wanting now that they weren't asking for 3 to 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's shifted now is this need to engage your workforce or engage your audience and have that high presentation value when you do it. As time goes on, our attention spans go down. So the idea of just doing some sort of collaboration platform call when most of your workforce is hybrid is really difficult to keep everyone engaged, right? So I know when I'm working remote, if I don't have to be on camera,
stop it.
Maybe I'm scrolling something else or doing some other work or doing something that I feel like might be more important in that moment because I can tune it out. So how do I leverage technology and how do I leverage video and broadcast style ecosystems to create more engaging content, whether it's graphics of earning calls or new products or anything like that. So the need of, I just need video to communicate or I just need a conference room to talk to another conference room has kind of evolved into now I need the conference room to be a full-blown auditorium in some cases. Not all cases, but there's a lot of times where we want that added ability to do more with the systems that are already in place.
Right. Mike, what are you seeing as well from the Avixa side?
Add to that, I think we're looking at an evolution. So we started with bringing more broadcast capability really as a result of COVID into the workplace. And then that's evolved as there's been ad hoc broadcast experiences by a CEO that wants to be on CNN style presentations. And that capability has now promulgated across the marketing department, across internal meetings. So the capabilities created an expectation level inside the enterprise that actually the technology can resolve. And as I think we'll get into it, we'll see maybe there's some issues inside the organization, some issues with how things are designed and deployed that can be improved to actually have this broadcast great experience instead of just some ill-defined broadcast experience.
Well, and that's a good point. It's like we're talking about, broadcast grade. Can we talk about what does that mean? What does that experience mean? What is broadcast grade?
Yeah, I actually like saying broadcast grade a lot better than I think what we've been hearing is broadcast quality.
Well,
what is broadcast quality? And I think a lot of us associate what we watch on the other end of the screen as broadcast quality, like what content I produce and how I look at it. Is there graphics or does it just look like high quality video? And well, that's broadcast quality. Well, right. I can do broadcast quality then with my iPhone. We could all sit in our garages and have a podcast using our iPhones, which would be fine. But there's an idea of what is that the right answer though? When I have a CEO or an executive or I have an important meeting that I need to talk to my entire workforce for, probably not. So I think there's this aspect of needing this resiliency underneath where broadcast grade is what's feeding that, what's powering those systems so that when it matters, the systems work and the message is clear and it looks good, it's engaging. And ultimately the engineers who are running it know it won't fail, or at least you're mitigating a lot of risk. And so it's this risk tolerance conversation, and my investment is lessening that risk to make sure that I can go to sleep at night knowing everything's going to work tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. You have a little more reliability, comfort in the system.
Right.
Yeah. Let me add there's a finer definition to that. broadcast grade is something that Avixa has tackled. And so we're bringing a suite of standards from the CTS suite, standards around audio quality, video quality. But then beyond that, as was mentioned, reliability is a requirement. So broadcast grade isn't just the outcome, it's the whole process of delivering the broadcast. It should be thought through as an enterprise first approach. It's not just transferring broadcast into an enterprise space, and neither is it trying to just upgrade Pro AV. It's actually this third entity that has the high grade of broadcast, along with a lot of the expectations of reliability and redundancy. And then there's some aspects of broadcast that can be brought into it, like rehearsing before you go on, like the promulgation of creative content that comes from the broadcast side. So to me, the scope of broadcast grade and broadcast AV has really broadened and can be much more well-defined than it ever has been.
Yeah, and what are you seeing, like, when you start that conversation about broadcast grade with a customer? What do you see as, like, the first thing to bring up to talk them into why they need to talk about this?
So, like, what's the outcome? What's the result? Who's the audience? We mentioned already that some CEOs have to be on the news every once in a while, and they don't always choose to be on the news. It just comes with the territory of the position, right? So a lot of times it's what's the outcome? Who am I trying to reach? And there's a story from one of our clients back a few years ago when the world shut down, and they were live to whatever, call letter station on an iPad, and the iPad falls and is looking at the ceiling. Well, that reflects poorly on that organization, and that's all it took for them to invest in a brand new studio, right? So it's this, again, this risk tolerance of, is this able to fail? Sometimes we can say, yeah, that if we're just doing a Zoom call or something, and if my camera goes down or my laptop dies, it's not the end of the world. But I can't afford to let that happen if I'm live, and the outcome is I'm representing my company to stakeholders, shareholders, the global, network of whoever's watching. So when you have that outcome conversation first, that's what really drives a lot of this conversation of what I'm implementing and how much, I want to invest in this space.
Right.
Let me dive in on that one too. I want to say which customer. So if you're talking to the end customer, the outcome probably is what they think. And then the second thing is, who's going to deliver this for me?
Right.
In the organization, it could be a dedicated broadcast team. Within marketing, it could be the Pro AV team, it could be IT's responsibility. Whose responsibility is it is probably the first question. In the more evolved organizations, there's a collaboration of those teams to create that proper broadcast grade experience. In other organizations, it falls on one of those other ones, and then they're maybe struggling with the tech, and they may need some help to understand exactly what needs to be delivered and how it can be rolled out to the end users.
Okay. No, that's perfect. And then when you're talking to customers, especially about, they're wanting to get into this, and you start talking to them about the system and their workflows, like, what's important in that ecosystem to, like, try to bring some consistency to things? Like, what's the most important thing they need to think about to make it broadcast grade, I guess would be the best way to ask that.
I like what Michael just said of who are you talking to? So what is their skill level? Is it the AV or the IT team? And they were charged previously with, I just need to support conference rooms. So does the TV turn on? Does the HDMI cable work? If that's the case, and now they need to be in charge of broadcast, well, now I need to make it simple for them to use. I need to take the complexity out of it, so they're supporting one system multiple times over whatever spaces that they're in. So how do I make it feel more like that Crestron or Q-SYS system? There's ways for us to color it so that it looks like that. They're approaching the studio the same way they would a conference room.
Right.
If it's a broadcast team or a media team that's used to maybe doing post-production or even live production, or they run a studio, I can just give them more tools in order to make the end result come a little bit quicker. So a lot of teams are, say that you're based in New York or LA and you have other offices around the country or globally. I want to support one system multiple times over versus all these other individual locations being supported 5, 6, 7 different ways.
Right.
So I want to scale a system up and down based on the needs of the location and the people I'm serving with it. And from an engineering side, I want to support the same type of ecosystem, just like you would, again, with that conference room. I want it to feel normal, and I want it to feel something that I recognize easily when I come into the space versus I've sent somebody who's new to another space and they've got to figure out how it works from nothing, right? So it's a familiarity with the system, building it once and repeating it over and over again so that it's easy to deploy, easy to operate, and most importantly, easier to support if something goes down.
Yeah, especially with customers that this is the message we want to get out. And if they go to a different office, same concept, they can push it out from there. They can repeat wherever they are.
Right.
And Mike, what are you seeing on your side for things?
I think that you asked the most important thing, technology, I guess it needs to be delivered, have to deliver broadcast grade. And I think it comes down to learning some things from broadcast, which is you've got to have robust, high quality content, and you've got to have a high quality, reliable delivery system. And those things come together in the production room. And one of our recent surveys said about a third of enterprises now have production rooms. So you see that's the growth of it. I think you begin to see some standardization by implementing production room and the things that go along with it to drive that. So without a focus, I guess, strategically on the broadcast grade, it's much harder to continue to replicate the experience in the way that Matt just mentioned.
What do you guys see as the biggest question companies miss asking? Like, what's the thing that they miss thinking about when they're starting into this and you're trying to design an ecosystem around this?
That's a good question. I feel like they have an end goal in mind, but they don't necessarily understand the investment that what that means. So investment could mean equipment, it could mean personnel. They have, because they have an outcome in mind. There's, say we're at InfoComm and there's a lot of really cool technology, and so you go to one booth and you see that outcome that you want, and you go to another booth and you see the same thing, but one is 10 times the price of another thing. Well, I could do it with this, so I'm going to do it with this. But you don't think again of that what's that risk tolerance? Like,
right.
Why is that 10x the price? So I think it comes down to common questions of asking yourself, why is this more expensive, and why should I think about it going this way versus, again, that iPhone conversation. I think there's a lot of budget constraints, and so when you think in the moment of, well, today I can afford this, so I'm just gonna spend my money here, versus if I put a little bit more in here, maybe next year I don't need to spend as much because I'm able to scale what I already have, versus I see a lot of investment made, and we have a goal.
We have a goal. It's red and white, so.
I don't know who did it. Is it Canada?
That's my guess.
Go Canada. Nice. We're a Canadian-based company, so congratulations to Ross Video. I think that's the thing. We have that same conversation with the iPhone, and so we start missing out on those conversations of, instead of spending my money once and then incrementally spending down the road, if I buy something that does the thing today, but it never can do the thing I need tomorrow, well, now you're starting all over and you have to either reallocate or you're pitching that stuff, and now it's just a paperweight.
Right. No, that's a really good point. Like, what do you think? Like, what are people missing out on?
So the goal may be the same, pun intended, but it really depends again on the customer. So I was recently at the University of Nebraska, big into football. What to them broadcast grade means they've got the money, thanks to the football support, to create a high class experience. A smaller college or a smaller business, they look at that and say, how can I possibly do that? What do you mean I can have a broadcast grade experience? I just can't afford that. So a lot of education is needed. I think there's a lot of misperceptions about how expensive it really is to deliver this kind of experience. So ask them to they need to be educated as to what is the outcome, and then you can calibrate the technology to the outcome to fit the budget, rather than have them stuck in this, I just can't reach something that only large organizations can do.
To add on to that, I think asking more questions in terms of CapEx versus OpEx, to do broadcast grade graphics or things like that, so much can be done in the cloud now. So maybe you have a limited budget, but you want the ability to dip your toes in the water before doing a big CapEx expense. So even on that note, but that's a great example of a university or a smaller college that doesn't have a huge program in getting NCAA, backing and support. So they have to find more creative ways of dipping their toes in the water. So asking those questions, I think, too, helps, with the right partners to give you higher quality, maybe without that expense.
And something I've seen a lot is companies that, hey, 90% of the time our show is this big. We have speakers, we have, and then twice a year, 4 times a year, we're doing a very big show. And it's like calculating, what do we spend on now? Can we expand into the cloud for a big show? Do we rent in equipment? Like thinking that through instead of buying for your big show and underutilizing the system sometimes.
And I think that's somewhat new that we've been able to do, not that's just true. Ross, but across the board with broadcasters and whatnot. And there's been a lot of companies specifically built to spin up remote productions, and similar to the Super Bowl is not cut at the Super Bowl, right? Like it's cut somewhere else. Right. So in the same sense, a big corporate or enterprise or university can have a central control room, but have a production going somewhere else. So yeah, being able to scale that when you need it, I think is relatively new, which is why a lot of people miss that conversation early on, especially if it's brand new to you and you're trying to get into it.
Yeah, especially if it's new. And then last question, what other internal groups do companies need to engage with when they're thinking about building these kind of systems?
All of them.
All of it, everybody. Across the board.
What I mean by that is, so on the user side, sales, marketing, internal teams, executive, all have to be bought in. I actually see this broadcast grade as a company or institution competency, not just as something to be used in certain occasions. It's when it's available by the different teams for different reasons. So that's on the user side. On the technology side, again, as I mentioned, it's the broadcast team and is responsible. IT, Pro AV, at best case, there's a broadcast team that has a representative from each of those departments, so they can pull things together. So really being able to bring together all the different parts of the organization, understand they're creating a new discipline around a higher level of Pro AV delivery called broadcast grade, rather than some one-off or separate activity.
Yeah, I think everyone is a good place to start, because especially if you're an enterprise or education, especially if you're government, like you need the right people in the room from the beginning, because you don't want to work with a partner and get all the way to the end and go, oh, I'm not compliant with my organization's standards. So there's IT, there's security and compliance, which is sometimes not even a part of IT, it's their own thing. So all these stakeholders from who's going to be using these systems and how often will they be using them? Is it something where the room that I'm creating or the studio that I'm creating, is it open to everyone? Is it just for C-suite? What's that look like? And ultimately, as things shift more and more and more to IP, even though we're doing it in closed studio, if that's hitting the network, and sometimes even if it's not, if it's any kind of piece of hardware, you need compliance and security, and there's tests that have to happen sometimes before we even make a purchase happen. Right. So we have to prove it before we can even get in the building, which is a whole nother conversation. So
we've been through it.
Yeah, sure. Having all these conversations ahead of time saves so much more headaches in the past. And once you get across that threshold of, yes, this is good to go, then it makes the whole process so much more seamless to roll out.
Amazing. Thank you. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Very much appreciate it.
See you next time.
Absolutely.